Ahí estamos. Bueno, bienvenidos a todos. Es un placer poder contar con ustedes. Yo soy Diego Comincini y en el día de hoy, junto a Bautista Garrido, ambos líderes del Club de Economía de Lucema, vamos a tener una gran charla con el señor y Premio Nobel Robert Aumann. En la charla se va a dar de la siguiente forma. Alrededor de una hora van a ser preguntas y respuestas, un diálogo entre el invitado y yo, su presentador, con preguntas preparadas, que más o menos serán unas 15 preguntas. Luego de esa hora, aproximadamente a las 3:05, 3:10, pasaremos a una sección de preguntas de ustedes, preguntas del público. Así que si durante la sesión empiezan a tener dudas o quisieran preguntarle algo en particular al señor Bob, siéntanse libres de hacerlo en la parte de Q&A que está ahí abajo en el Zoom y con eso ya vamos para adelante. Dicho esto, a partir de ahora toda la charla va a ser en inglés, así que les agradecemos su presencia y que esperemos que le disfruten. Now we switch to English. We are in presence of Professor Robert Aumann, Nobel Prize winner in economics in 2005. He's an unbelievable person. He studied mathematics all of his life, maybe the bachelor, the master, and the PhD, and he received from the MIT. He has enormous uh, and good efforts put into the game theory development and the application of mathematics in real life. And one of these applications is in economics. So he helped us to understand better our world. He has contributions in price wars, in commercial wars, in decision making, in cooperation and conflict. And so he contributed a lot to our science. So Bob, how are you doing today?
I'm okay. Yeah, I'm fine.
You look fine.
Okay.
So we start with the first question. What motivates you to study mathematics in first place?
Okay. I actually was in high school. I was not very good at mathematics in elementary school. I did not solve the problems correctly, and I was not very good. But in high school, there was a teacher of mathematics who really caught my imagination. And it was mainly in geometry, Euclid's geometry. Okay, and there it is. That's real mathematics. Okay, the what you learn in elementary school is not mathematics, and what you learn in quadratic equations and that kind of thing in high school also, that's not mathematics, but geometry, Euclid's geometry, that's mathematics, because there you have logical proofs, you have definitions and theorems and proofs, and my teacher caught my imagination, a high school teacher caught my imagination, um, and he gave me difficult problems to solve. Okay, difficult problems. Sometimes they took me 2 weeks, and even now, maybe 70 years or more, longer, 80 years later, 80 years later. I speak with other mathematicians, and they also say that those very problems, for example, I'll give you an example of a problem, okay?
Okay.
To prove that if the bisectors, the angle bisectors, in other words, a line drawn from an angle to the opposite side of a triangle, okay? As you have a triangle and you have one of the two vertices, so it forms an angle, and you draw a line from that to the opposite side. Okay, that's called the angle bisector. It bisects the angle. It has to be. It has the two parts of the angle that are created have to be equal. Now, if those lines are equal, then the triangle is an isosceles triangle. In other words, then the two opposite sides are also equal. And that's, it's a difficult problem to prove. It's a difficult problem to solve. And I heard of other mathematicians who are a little younger than me, not much, who also worked hard on that problem in high school. So the teacher took me aside and he encouraged me in high school. Yes, and that's what made me start studying mathematics in college, in the university, and on to it in graduate school to a doctorate. Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
it pushed you to the next level. It was amazing. Do you remember the name of the professor, or that's a lot to ask?
Yeah, I do remember the name of this high school teacher was Gansler. Okay, Abraham Gansler was his name. But the professor who directed my thesis and who was really um, very worked hard with me, yes, on my thesis, was George Whitehead. He was an eminent mathematician, a member of the United States National Academy of Sciences. And he did a lot to encourage me also. And I asked him to give me a problem and not here because he gave a course in topology, okay, algebraic topology. And that caught my imagination, and I went on from there to knot theory, the theory of knots, like you tie in a rope, okay, and the mathematical properties of knots, and that was not his main field of study, but he encouraged me in this, and yeah, he was a very good person, yeah, and an excellent mathematician.
Oh, incredible, really incredible. But we are an economics club, so I
Right.
must ask you, uh, when you discover the economy as something interesting that and switch towards that path, what makes you make
Well, in
or
my
get
last year in graduate school, I met John Nash. Have you heard that name? Nash, yes, okay.
yes?
Uh, and he had just completed his doctoral thesis at MIT, sorry, at Princeton. At Princeton, I was in MIT, and he came to MIT. He had just completed so he came as a young instructor, and his thesis was in game theory. Okay, now he explained game theory to me, or parts of it, what he had done, some things, yeah, and I didn't think it was very interesting. Okay. I didn't think it was very interesting, and I listened to him. I was polite, but I didn't. It didn't catch me. Now, after the doctorate, after doing a doctorate at MIT, I went to Princeton to do a postdoc at the mathematics department, and the mathematics department had a unit uh, which was called the some kind of I forgot the name of it.
Yeah, okay.
A research group. Yeah, it had to do with operations research, uh, and operations research, very practical operations research. Um, it had to do with assigning weapon systems to naval ships and other very practical things. And one of the practical things was that Bell Telephone Laboratories, the Bell Telephone Company, was developing a ground to air missile. and they wanted to know from us what should be done in case there is a squadron of aircraft, enemy aircraft, some of whom, a small part of whom, are carrying nuclear weapons, nuclear bombs, and the others are just carrying conventional bombs or nothing at all, yes, and they're just decoys. And how should you aim uh, the um, the ground-to-air missile at those aircraft in an optimal way? And that problem was assigned to me to work on by the head of this unit, and I immediately recognized that this was game theory. This was what Nash had talked about before, and and so I got to studying the relevant parts of game theory, and I wrote a report, and um, and then I got into game theory for its own sake. Yes, that got me interested in game theory. In other words, the theoretical things that Nash had been telling me about didn't pull me, and now they do pull me. But at that time, they didn't pull me, and I got to think, um, and that's what got me interested in game theory. And it's not a big step from game theory to economics, okay? Economics is about game theory. Yes, people are competing, and economics is part of game theory. You know, and maybe some people think that game theory is part of economics, but that's not the case. Economics is part of game theory. It's a game theory is a situation where people interact and they are striving to different goals, not necessarily opposite goals, like in a war, like in a air to ground to air missile, but different goals. I'm interested in promoting my own welfare, and you're interested in promoting your own welfare, and we interact with each other. So if you're trying to sell me a house, then you want a higher price and I want to get a lower price. Never mind what the house is, but that's always the case. So economics is part of game theory, and from game theory, I got interested in economics and so on. Yeah.
Well, some of the things of game theory that you have mentioned is the way of thinking. Now, a person myself, I think I expect the best for myself, and you expect the best for yourself. So in this case, how do we act with rationality? What does rationality means in reality or for economics?
Rationality means promoting your own goals. That's what it means. Okay, promoting your own goals. Wait a minute. There's something to add. To the best of your knowledge, to the best of your information, in accordance with what you think, not what's true, what other people think, or what it's what you think in accordance with what you think. Let me give you an example. Okay, I
Okay.
had a student, and he told me, what's the difference between rationality as people usually understand it and rationality in economics. So the difference is this. Suppose you're walking along the street and a black cat crosses your path, okay? So according to superstitions, a black cat crossing your path is bad luck, okay? And in order to avoid this bad luck, you have to turn aside and spit. Okay? So, is it rational to turn aside and spit? So, the usual answer is no, because science has proved that those superstitions are ridiculous, right? But the economist's answer is yes, that's the rational thing to do because it's in accordance with your knowledge. You think you believe in those superstitions, you believe in it. So the best way to avoid bad luck is to spit. So you spit.
It's a rational behavioral and rational mode of living life. So, with that definition of rational, we could say that even a war is rational in your
A
terms.
war is rational. That's exactly right. And a war is rational because you imagine the Churchill and Roosevelt in World War II would have said war is irrational, so let Hitler come and let him destroy us because war is irrational. No, no, war can be rational. War is rational. The American Civil War was rational. The American Revolution was rational. Probably the Argentine Revolution was rational. People want, people have a purpose to satisfy. And if they can try all other methods and they don't work, then yeah, they have to go to war. Yes, there's no way out of it. If in order to defend your life or your liberty or your um,
Your
your
own good
vision,
interest.
you have to go to war. Okay, then war becomes rational. Okay.
And a particular question to you: do you are in favor of war or not
No,
in
I'm
that
not
plan?
in favor of war, but if I need to go to war, if I need to go to war to promote my goals, then I will go to war. And Abraham Lincoln, who was one of the most moral people in the war, he said that. He said that before in his first inaugural speech and in his second inaugural speech. He said, "We don't want war, but if the war needs to be fought in order to prevent the dissolution of the American state, then we will go to war." And that's rational. It's, in other words, rational is to make a decision of what is more important to you. Abraham Lincoln could have said, no, we're not going to go to war because what's going to happen to us? The South is not going to attack the North. Yes, the South is not going to attack the North. The South does not want to capture the North. It only wants to hold slaves. Okay, it wants to hold black slaves, okay? And you could say war is irrational. So Lincoln could have said, okay, we don't have black slaves in the North. We don't have that, okay? The South has it. We don't like it. We are against it. But if that's how it has to be, the American state has to be divided into two and make two states out of it. We dislike war. We're against war. War is irrational. So we're not going to go to war. He could have said that. All right. But he didn't say it. And nobody attacks Lincoln because of irrationality. Yes. Okay.
Of course, of course. Yes, yes. So it's with some the incentive and preferences to that. It's like an economic frame to view the war and the conflicts and how we can solve these conflicts with another economic frame to approach that.
Yeah, okay, I didn't catch the question. What's the question?
How do we approach a solution to the work or the conflicts in general with an economic frame? Like we just see that the war is rational in economic terms, but how do we finish that?
The world is not necessarily rational in an economic sense. I mean, we make a lot of we make a lot of mistakes. Um, we have economic crises. We had the economic crisis of '08, which was due to mistaken policy, which led to a crisis. And we don't always act rationally. Our policies are not necessarily rational, but that's why we study economics, because we want to see what kind of policy leads to good results, to acceptable results. Let me give you an example of that. Okay, there's the this is you're a young man, and you don't remember maybe the 20th century. Okay, but the what marked the 20th century was the rise of economic socialism. Okay, communism, socialism and communism, and about half the world in the second half, or even before that, and starting the Russian Revolution was in 1917, um, and just a second, please. האם אני יכול לבקש, אני כאן מדבר עם ארגנטינה, כן? אז אני יכול לבקש שימעיטו בשיחה. Okay. My wife just came home from a meeting with her brothers and sisters, and so there's somebody with them. They're talking with each other, and it may be interfering.
It's
So,
okay, it's understandable. So continue.
Yeah, there was this thing of socialism, and in the 20th century, it didn't work. Okay, it didn't work. The motto of socialism was to each according to his needs, from each according to his ability. Okay, that was the motto. That's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I subscribe to it with both hands. Both hands. I'm in favor of it. There's only one small mistake with it. Small mistake. And the
What
small
is that?
mistake is it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And the reason it doesn't work is because the incentives are all wrong. Okay, now that is the underlying uh, tool or fact or approach of game theory and economics. Economics, but also game theory. And that is that you want to give incentives to people to do what is good, to do what is good for the world. Okay, you want to give them incentives. Now, the motto, maybe I'm oversimplifying, but it's there it is. The motto, to each according to his ability, from each according to his from each according to his ability, to each according to his needs. So now that means that people are incentivized not to work at all, because they will have great needs because they're not working and they're not getting paid. So they will have great needs. So they'll be getting all kinds of welfare payments. And from each according to his ability will also not work, because nobody's going to work hard when there's no pay. Okay, so the incentives are all wrong. And you have to take incentives into account when you're doing economics. That is the basic idea of modern economics and of game theory, incentives, okay? To get people to want to do what is good, what is right.
Wow. See, it's that. It's just that, and no more than that, and no less than that. So, Bob, you are an amazing scientist.
Yeah.
So, as a student, and some of the the participants in this meeting wants to do investigation in the future. So how did you approach your investigations? The solutions are after or before step in the scientific process of thinking and demonstrating?
Yeah. Well, uh, I think that you go to school and you study, okay, and you read the literature, and you read the literature and you absorb it. Now, sometimes you read the literature in order to solve your problems. But sometimes you read the literature not in order to solve the problems, just to learn what's going on. And then you hear of something which is to which that's applicable, okay? We'll get an example of that later. One of your later questions there, because
Okay.
that would be a before, and an after would be yeah. You take a problem and you try to find out how you can deal with it. But I think most of the work is done before. You have some kind of, you have to see, oh, here's where I can apply this.
Okay, okay. Maybe it's in the next question. In your paper, Markets with a Continuum of Traders, how did you
Okay,
come up with the idea of a continuum agents in that?
that's a good example of what I just said. That's a good example of what I just said. Okay, the idea was to model a lot of traders by continuum. And the reason for it was, you see, Schubeck, Martin Schubeck, and Gerard de Breu, and Herb Scarf. Okay, three. They all three are no longer with us. But they developed this relationship between the core of a game, okay, and the set of competitive equilibria. In other words, price equilibria of an economy, okay, and that turned out is not to be, there was no relationship between the core and the price equilibria in small markets, okay? But you needed a lot of players, yes, to make that work. So what they tried to do is limit theorems as the number of players gets larger and larger, traders in the market gets larger and larger. Okay, so there was a conference in Princeton in October of 1961, okay, in which Herb Scarf presented a theorem of that kind, yes, with the numerable infinity of traders, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It, it was awkward, okay? It got the result, but it was awkward. The model was awkward. Now, this is an example of before. because during that year I had read papers by Lloyd Shapley, mainly by and John Milner, a mathematician, okay, not an economist, but Shapley was also a mathematician, but he was a game theorist. Milner was also a game theorist of a kind. But he did his work for which he became famous was in topology, differential topology, and so on. All right. So I had read papers by them about a corporation with two large stockholders. And the rest is very, very small stockholders. But there are two stockholders who are large. Maybe one owns 5% of the stock and one owns 3% of the stock, okay? Or something like that. In other words, large, but not very large, okay?
Okay.
And the rest owned, a very, very small percentage of stock. And they modeled that as the small stockholders were modeled as a continuum, like a continuum of points in a line, or particles in a liquid, or something like that. Yeah, so it was like it's like having a cup of coffee in which you put two candies in it. Okay, all
Okay.
right. Something like that. And they analyzed it that way. And I thought that was an interesting approach to model a lot of players like a liquid. And when I heard Scarf at that conference, okay, present his, he became a very good friend, by the way, very good friend. When I heard him present this theorem, I said, a continuum of traders just has to be the right way to do this. So that's an example of before. That's an example of before because I had read these papers, yeah, and I saw this problem. I saw him presenting it and struggling with limit theorems and denumerable infinities and so on. And I said, no, it has to be a continuum, and that worked very well. Yeah.
Hey, we see that. So no, incredible. So maybe if I ask you for another paper of yours or another works of yours, like the cooperations in conflicts is solved by repeated games. O sea, I mean, is the how can the agents cooperate when conflicts?
Well, the idea there is that when there's no future, we get again incentives. There's no incentive for cooperation. Okay, so if a peddler comes to my door, okay, and he wants to sell me some shoelaces or something like that, okay. I don't know. We don't have that in Israel anymore, but we used to have it. We used to have it until about 20 or 30 years ago. I don't know whether you have it in Argentina, but peddlers used to come to the door, and they used to peddle small things, yes, and usually you bought from them out of pity, mercy, yes, but in fact, if you wanted good merchandise, even good shoelaces, yes, you didn't go to a peddler because a peddler you saw once, you didn't see him again. And he had no incentive to sell you good merchandise. Okay? Now, your grocer at the corner of the street, he is at the corner of the street today and tomorrow and next year and so on. So he has an incentive, okay, to sell you good merchandise, okay? So if he sells you shoelaces, then they will be good shoelaces, all right? And the reason for that is because there is a tomorrow, okay? the tomorrow, the fact that the game is repeated, yes, gives the peddler an incentive to make to sell you good merchandise, and the other way around also. Okay. Again, it used to be. Nowadays, with credit cards, it doesn't happen anymore. But you used to go to the corner grocery, and you used to say, "Mike, please give me now a dozen eggs. I don't have any cash in my pocket. Write it down on my slip, okay?" And he would say, "Sure, why not, Mr. Aumann? Yes." And I would come at the end of the month and pay everything, okay? But I was motivated to pay everything because it's a repeated game. Otherwise, he won't give me credit anymore, right? It's a repeated game. So, so it's on both sides. I am motivated. I am incentivized not to cheat him, to pay him, and he is incentivized to give me good merchandise. It's a repeated game. When there's a repeated game, it tends to cooperation. When there's a one-time game, even in the famous prisoner's dilemma, if it's repeated, people will cooperate. If it's not repeated, then people will defect.
Yes. Well, it's like a way of life, thinking in terms of
Yeah,
game
that's
theory.
exactly right. It became ingrained in people. Okay, it became ingrained, so they don't do it on purpose. They don't say, "Oh, I'm going to not buy from the peddler, but buy from the corner grocery my shoelaces because he is incentivized," or something like that. No, the fact is, that people learn from experience that is a good way to proceed, and they do.
Okay. So in a normative way, we could say that every person should know about game theory in consciousness, or at least decision makers.
No, no, you don't have. That's what I was saying.
No,
It
no, but
becomes
it
it
will
works.
be
It works. So the peddler might be incentivized to give you poor to sell you cheap merchandise. But the corner grocery is incentivized to sell you good, and he knows that not because he figured it out, but because it works. Because it works, and because he also maybe even not because it works, because the corner grocery inherited the business from his father. Okay, and his father did that, so he does it also. Okay, but because it works, and if it didn't work, he would change it.
okay. I get it. I get it. So with all and more of that work that you have made in your life, and you have received some amazing prizes like the John Von Neumann prize and the Nobel in memory, o sea, the economics in memory of Nobel. So in that moment, how was the call? How did you um get to know that you have won the Nobel Prize? Where were you?
Well, I was in my office. Okay, I was in my office, and it was about 11 o'clock, something like that, in the morning. And in Sweden, it's 1 hour before Israel, so it was 10 o'clock in Sweden. And I was working on a letter to Jacques Drez. Jacques Drez he's also no longer with us. He is a Belgian economist, mathematical economist, who I worked with him a lot, and I published a number of joint papers with him. And I was working on a letter to him responding to something about a joint paper we were writing. And the phone rang in my office, and I picked it up. And they said, "Good morning. We're speaking from the Swedish Academy of Sciences." So I said, "What can I do for you?" Because I figured they wanted some information. I didn't look at the calendar or anything like that. I figured they wanted some information about somebody. So I said, "What can I do for you?" So they told me that Tom Schelling and I are getting the prize. So they said also that they will make a public announcement in 20 minutes. Yeah, it was about 11:30. They will make a public announcement at 12 o'clock or 11 o'clock Swedish time. And okay, so I said, "Thank you very much." And I went and I locked my office door from the inside. Okay, I locked it. I put a key into the lock, and I locked it from the inside. All right. And I quickly finished the letter to Therese, and I didn't mention the Nobel Prize. I didn't mention that. I quickly finished the letter, scientific letter to Jacques, and I got ready for the storm of people who would knock at the door. And indeed, a storm of people knocked at the door, and I didn't open it. Okay. And then came the voice of my son, Jonathan, who said, "Dad, please open the door. It's Jonathan." And and I opened the door and I let him in, and I quickly closed the door again. And that was it. Yes, that afternoon, about half an hour later, there was a news conference in my building, and in the lobby, main lobby of the building, and I participated in that, and the ambassador from Sweden also participated in it, and the uh, the president of the university participated in it, and the newspaper people, I asked all kinds of questions, and I answered the questions just like your ad. Oh, maybe not their questions were not as good. And then it was finished. And in the meantime, my fiance, because I had my first wife died about 5 years earlier, and I had just gotten engaged to my second wife. So she also heard about it from someplace, and she also came to the news conference. And at the end, the news conference was finished. So we went home, and as I was leaving the house, the door of the door of the building opened, and two men came in, and they said, "Do you know where Professor Aumann's office is?" So I said, "Yes, I do know where Professor Aumann's office is. It's on the second floor up there. It's room 225. Okay? You asked me where Professor Aumann's office is, and I gave you the information." Okay? So they went up and I went home.
Amazing. A very, very good play.
Yeah.
Um,
Nowadays, it wouldn't happen,
oh,
because I'm recognized on the street by many people.
well, it's good that.
Yeah.
So, were you expecting to win the prize or not?
No,
Were
I
you
wasn't expecting the prize. No, no, I'll tell you about that. I was not expecting the prize. I did have certain suspicions in 1994. 1994 was the 50th anniversary of the publication of The Theory of Games and Economic Behavior by John Von Neumann and Oscar Morgenstern. Oscar Morgenstern, I got to know very well. He was an economist. Von Neumann, I shook hands with him once at a conference, but I didn't get to know him very well. But that was the 50th anniversary of game theory, basically of game theory. 50th birthday of game theory. So I thought that maybe there would be a prize in game theory, and maybe, just maybe, I would get it. But I didn't get it. Who got it was the people who deserved it very much, John Nash and John Hassani and Reinhard Selten. Okay, those three. John Nash, John Hassani, and Reinhard Selten. And none of those three are with us any longer, okay? They all passed away. Most of the people that I'm talking about passed away. So I said, okay, that's it. That's it. I finished. And I was not expecting it at all, in 05. But it came.
Okay. Well, what a great surprise.
Yeah.
So it's for us that we are not aware of that world. And the important thing for some people is the money payment. So how do you receive the payment of the Nobel Prize? Is a bank transfer in Swedish crowns, in dollars? It came the same day, 1 year later? How is that?
I'm sure they didn't give it in cash. That I know in cash. It's a lot of money. Okay. By anybody's reckoning, it's a lot of money. They did not give it in cash. How they gave it, I don't remember. I don't remember whether it was in Swedish crowns. I don't remember whether it was in dollars. I think it was in Swedish crowns. I think they made a bank transfer. They asked me for my bank account. Even then, I don't. Uh, I don't know what's going on with my own finances. My children take care of that. And one of my children came with me to the desk there when that arrangement was made, and she took care of it. I don't know. Okay.
Okay. And how do you use it? Or you don't know, you...
I use it. I just put it in my bank account. I don't use it for anything special, significant. I did uh, pay a lot of money to bring all my people to Stockholm. Now for the event, and the Nobel Foundation will pay for 16 people. That's how it was at that time. I don't know how it is now. But at that time, for 16 people, guests, your guests, and they'll pay their expenses, okay? But I brought 44. So I had some expenses in paying for them, yes, and that took not most of the prize, but a good part of the prize. And I don't know. I don't remember what I did with it. I put it in my bank account. I'm not short of money. I'm not rich, or by no means rich. Uh, and I live in a nice apartment, but it's not lavish. It's not luxurious. Yeah? So it's I live okay. Yes, I don't, and that was added to my bank account, and
A good
that's
life. would
No,
like
no,
no.
no. There was, I had to pay tax on it, American tax and Israeli tax. Yes.
Oh,
Uh,
everywhere.
yeah, yeah, okay.
So with all of that said, you are you are an outstanding person in terms of scientific mind and apports to the science. So what makes you different from the rest? And how can someone accomplish a similar impact that the one that you have done?
What makes me different from the rest? Is
Uh,
that
the-
your question? Yes.
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know whether I am different from the rest. Anyway, you say I'm different from the rest, so you have to give the answer to that. I don't think I'm different from the rest. And anybody, uh, everybody tries to promote his own welfare. He tries to think about other people also, yes, but he thinks about his family. He thinks about other people. I don't think I'm so different from the rest.
Oh, okay. I-
If you think that I'm different from the rest, let me ask you, how am I different?
the roles are inverted. Oh, I think for your awards, but well, we can have another talk about that maybe next year. Um, so in terms of your personal life, as another stage of question, who was a true teammate to you in life? There was someone, there was someone special to you, to your work, in,
In my personal life or in my professional life?
in the both of you.
Let me tell you, in my professional life, I had one lifelong partner, and that was Professor Michael Maschler, Maschler. And I wrote 4 or 5 joint papers with him. Another one was Jacques Drez that I mentioned, but Maschler was more significant. Maschler was an Israeli professor at the university. I worked with him my whole life. Okay, that's my professional life. Okay, as my personal life, I have I have the most special person in my life was my first wife. Yes, she is the mother of my children. I have 5 children. Uh, I have 21 grandchildren. I have 40 great grandchildren, and I have one fifth generation descendant. So
Hey,
I'm the grandfather of a grandmother. Okay, my one of my grandchildren, one of my granddaughters is a grandmother. Okay, so that's my personal life, and I think I think the mother of my children was my lifelong partner until she passed away, and then I married her sister. Okay, 5 years later. 5 years later, I married her sister because I felt that this was, like the shoelaces at the corner grocery. This was a corner grocery. This was a family that made a good product. So I married her sister, who had been widowed a few years earlier, and she's a very significant. She is a very significant factor in my life. Yeah, absolutely. So
incredible.
my wife, my wives, my children, they are the most significant people in my life, and professionally, Professor Marshall. Okay.
Okay, okay. It's interesting, interesting. Well, you have a great family on your own. So, Bob, the last question for this part of the meeting, and then we switch to Bautista, is that many people are curious and ask the following question. When was the last time that you shaved your bread?
Okay, that's a good question. So actually, it was in I remember I happen to remember it because it's tied to a very significant event. It was in June of 1982. Okay, so we're talking about something that happened 43 years ago. And what happened was that my oldest son, I had 5 children. Okay, my oldest son was killed in the war between Lebanon and Israel. He was a gunner in a tank, and he was killed. He was killed in action. Now, it is a Jewish practice to, in the 30 days of mourning, 30 days from the time that a close relative gets killed or dies, yeah, uh, like a parent or a brother or sister or a child, uh, you don't shave, okay?
Okay.
So I didn't shave for 30 days. And then after 30 days, I said, you know what, Bob? It's okay. Let's continue not shaving. Okay. And so I grew a beard. But the story has a little twist to it. So that was in 1982. In 1991, there was a Gulf War between the United States and Iraq. Okay. Um, and at that time, Iraq sent missiles to Israel, okay? And these missiles, we did not enter the war. We didn't send any missiles back. We just shot down those missiles, okay? But as the thing is that not always you'll be able to shoot down all the missiles. Some of them you don't catch,
Yeah.
okay? And there was fear that that some of the missiles would have poison gas in them. Okay. Now, so the government gave out gas masks, which had to. You went to a room in your house. We didn't have real air raid shelters, but we went to a room in the house, and we're supposed to put on the gas masks in case there was an attack with poison gas, and the masks did not fit well with it with a beard. Okay, so at that time I shaved in order that the gas mask should save. So this was 9 years after I started, and I shaved, and I shaved every day so that the gas mask should fit. This lasted a few, I don't remember, a few weeks or a few months, I don't remember. But then I resumed growing the beard. That's it.
Wow.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing that personal history of your red. Now, if Bautista is ready, we switch to him to read the questions from the audience. Thank you,
Okay.
Bob.
Okay.
Hi, Bob. How are you? Thank you
Hi,
very much
hi.
for your answers. It's all quite interesting. I have some questions here from the audience. Many of them are from theory. So I would like to start with this one that says that in a globalized economy, how could we promote the idea of repeated gains among nations so that wars or conflicts do not occur?
That wars will not occur?
Yes.
Yeah, I spoke about that in the previous hour. I don't think there's any way of guaranteeing that wars will not occur. I think the prophet Isaiah says that when there is recognition of one Lord and everybody will pray to that Lord, one God, then people will not want to go to war. But as long as people want something, and something is very dear to their hearts, for example, in World War II, opposing Hitler was very dear to the hearts. I mean, World War II could have been avoided if Churchill or Churchill had said, okay, let Hitler take over Britain. Hitler wanted to take over the world. He took over all of Europe, all of Europe. In the Netherlands, France, Belgium, except Switzerland, by the way, except Switzerland.
Yes.
Except Switzerland. Yeah, that's one exception. He didn't dare to take over Switzerland. I'll tell a story about that later, okay? But he took over all of Europe, Poland, Czechoslovakia, Bulgaria, everything. He took it over, and he threatened to take over Great Britain also, okay? So he was, Churchill could have said, we don't like war. All right, we don't want war. War is bad, war is evil. Okay, we're not going to fight. If Hitler wants to come and take over, let him come and take over. Could have said that. Another example I gave, I don't know whether you listened to the part with Diego, but another example I gave, which is not so extreme as Hitler, not so extreme. In 1861 was the Civil War between the North and the South of the United States. And the South of the United States, the southern states from Virginia southwards, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, and so on, they said, we're going to secede. We're going to break away from the United States because it looks like you're going to outlaw slavery, and we need slaves for our economy. We need slaves. Okay. So Lincoln said, no, you're not going to secede. Yeah. And they said, yes, we will secede. And they seceded, and Lincoln made war on them. Okay, because it was more important to Lincoln to have a United States, the North and the South together. If it's without slavery, it's without slavery. Than not to fight a war. Now, preventing a war is very, very important. But it's not more important than anything else, okay? We have to realize that. It's not more important than anything else. And some of the greatest people in the history of the world, okay, the whole world, yes, made war. War has been with us ever since the birth of humanity, and I think it's going to stay with us, okay? It's going to stay with us, because it is important to avoid war, but it's not more important than anything else, than everything else, I should say.
Right, yes. And I would like to follow that with this question, which I think, which is going to be your answer. But if we find the right incentives so that everyone can live well and no one needs to go to war, is there any chance, or are you optimistic that the world will one day achieve peace?
I didn't get the question. Say it
again.
again.
No, if you're optimistic that the world can one day achieve peace with the right incentives and so on.
No. I'm not optimistic, no. I hope for it, I wish for it, I pray for it, but I don't think it's going to happen. I don't see it in the foreseeable future. I think the world has a greater chance of destroying itself than making peace. There are, yeah, no, I don't think it's going to happen. Not in our foreseeable future. Let's put it that way, or not in the next 1,000 years. Okay.
Right. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. There's a student here who's asking if you could please speak and share with us something about your investigations on the biblical codes, which I know for a fact that you dedicated some portion of your life in studying.
Okay, so on the biblical codes, the story is this. Professor Eliyahu Rips, who died recently, all the time I'm talking about people who are no longer with us. Professor Eliyahu Rips gave a lecture about 30 years ago, in the middle of the 90s, at the mathematics colloquium of the Hebrew University, in which he presented some amazing statistics about words that appear in equidistant letter sequences in the Bible. By that I mean you look at a letter in the alphabet, and then you skip 17 letters, and you look at the next letter, and then you skip another 17, and you look at the next letter, and then you skip another 17, and you look at the next letter, and so on. And so you get pretty long words, 5 or 6 letters in them, and they tell a story. Okay? They tell a story. And I heard that and I was very impressed. It was very interesting. It was very interesting because it was statistically significant. Okay? It seemed statistically unlikely that this happens by chance. Okay? Seemed unlikely. And now came a part which was even more puzzling, and that is that there were words like that, codes like that, that foretold events. You remember the Bible was written even according to, the totally irreligious scientific estimates. The Bible was written at the latest, at the very, very latest, yes, in the millennium before Christ. Okay, so about 2,500 years ago, at the latest. Okay, and there seemed to be evidence that in these equidistant letter sequences, in these codes, there was being foretold events that happened in the last millennium. Okay, so between 1000 AD and now. Okay, so I examined this and I came to the conclusion that these were really statistically significant. Okay.
Well,
oh, wait a minute. Wait. Don't rush. That these were really statistically significant. And some people said this is utter nonsense. Okay. And forget about it. It's stupid. It's utter nonsense. But I was captivated by the fact it didn't seem right to me, even from a religious point of view. It didn't seem right. Yes, I'm a religious man, okay? Okay? And now, but even from a religious point of view, it didn't seem right. I won't go into the theology of this now. Okay, so, but it didn't seem right. But there was statistically significant. So what should I do? It was statistically very significant. You know, usually significance level of 98%, okay? Or 998 pro mil is considered very significant. The 2% error. But these were 6 parts in a million, okay? 6 in a million. Okay.
Wow.
So I was asked to head a committee, okay, which would run an experiment of our own, okay, on some text that had been suggested had been published, was also had these codes. I was asked to chair the committee. And the committee conducted the tests, and we sat for 2 years. We sat once a week for several hours, and we conducted the test. And then the great moment came to see whether we would get significance out of that. And what we got was total insignificance. Well, I mean, we got not 6 parts out of a million, but 450,000 parts out of a million. Yes. It was totally insignificant. And at that point, I raised my hands and I said, I'm finished with this. Finished. Okay, that's it. That's the story.
Oh, okay, well, it was, yeah, you got me there. I think it was going to be a different conclusion, but thank you very much for sharing. It's really interesting. I have another question. I think this it's from a business point of view. Brian here asks if when a business is starting, must we think in a collaborative way or in a selfish? Does it depend on the goods you're selling and in the way of offering those goods? Do you want me to repeat it?
I didn't catch the question. Say it again.
Yes,
Say
sorry.
it again, please.
When a business is starting, must we think in a collaborative way or in a selfish way? Does it depend on the goods you're selling and in the way of offering those goods?
Well, I think that I think you want to be selfish if you're in business. You want to be selfish, and at the same time, you want to be honest. But the basic thing is selfishness, okay? That is the basic drive of every business. And it's the basic drive not only of every business, but also of every worker. You don't have to be in business. A worker works because he is selfish, yes, and he wants to get higher pay because of selfishness, okay, or selfishness or regards for his family or something like that, yes. Now, but it's not but and. If you're in business, you want to be totally honest, okay? You want to be totally honest. And why do you want to be totally honest? Out of selfishness, okay? Because if you will be totally honest, you will succeed in business. And if you will try to cheat, you will fail, okay? So my advice is give good products, deliver good products. If you're in business doing consulting, then give good advice, honest advice, honest. Say what you really think, okay? And if you're in teaching, then try to teach as good as possible, okay? And if you're if you're in science, then try to write good papers, okay? But honest papers, okay? If you make a mistake, then publish it right away. I made a mistake, okay? But it's all because of selfishness.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you for that. I have one final question. This one comes from me. Bob, have you ever visited Argentina by any chance? Have you ever visited Argentina?
Yes, I have indeed. Yes, I've visited Argentina a number of times. I was in Buenos Aires, and I was also in other areas of Argentina. I went to the southern tip of Argentina.
Ushuaia.
Okay, and something with Fuentes, yes.
You mean Ushuaia? You mean?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. I took a ship there to Antarctica, and
Yeah.
I explored Antarctica a little bit, and then I went back, and I was in Chile, and I remember a trip from Chile to Argentina. I remember a trip from Chile to Argentina, and we left Chile, and then we drove a few kilometers, maybe 5 kilometers, and then came to the Argentine border. Have you been there? Yeah, it
Yes,
was
yes, I have.
not one next to the other. Yes,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
was
yeah.
not one next to the other.
Mhm.
And I came to Argentina there, and we explored Argentina a little bit. And yeah, right. So I've done Argentina, absolutely, yes, sir. I was also in Argentina in the falls. There's falls between Brazil
Oh
and
yeah.
Argentina.
Yes, between Brazil
Yeah,
and Argentina.
and
Yeah.
basically we came there from the Brazilian side,
Yep.
but we crossed the border and went on the Argentinian side also, and then back to Brazil. Yeah, so I've been in Argentina 4 or 5
Yeah, you've
times.
been from top to bottom. I see.
Yeah.
Well, Bob, thank you very much for your time, for speaking with us from the other side of the world. It was all really interesting, and it was an honor from us to be able to speak with you with a Nobel Prize in economics, which, well, many of us are economics students. So well, thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Bob, it was an amazing.
Hi. Good night.
Bye
Oh,
bye,
good
Bob.
afternoon. Good afternoon.
For us and good night for you. Have a good one, Bob. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
your time. Al resto de la gente les agradecemos su presencia. Esperamos que les haya gustado mucho y seguimos con la Econ Week. Mañana tenemos charla con Martín Uribe, así que no se la pierdan. Todas las charlas de esta semana están siendo grabadas y serán subidas a YouTube, al canal del Club de Economía de la Universidad del SEMA, así que es cuestión de tiempo hasta que estén todas las grabaciones allí. Un gran saludo a todos y nos estamos viendo. Muchas gracias.